Parlez-vous liberté? What does that mean, you might be asking? Find out today on the Prophetic Eye. Parlez-vous liberté? I got a C in high school French class, so I hope I didn't butcher that. But it means, do you speak freedom? That's a very important question in today's day and age, when the topic of freedom of speech and constitutional rights has become so prevalent, especially with the recent crippling of the alternative social media website, Parler. In the summer of 2020, at the height of the protests surrounding the death of George Floyd, I noticed something peculiar as I was reading an article on yahoo.com. You see, I love thoughts. I love to see what people are really thinking in society. And one of the ways that I do that is by covering my eyes and reading the comments sections on articles dealing with controversial issues. But on that day, in the summer of 2020, something was different, and it was this. When I clicked on the comments section of the article, instead of seeing the ugliness that I had been used to seeing in the comments section, I saw this. Our goal is to create a safe and engaging place for users to connect over interests and passions. In order to improve our community experience, we are temporarily suspending article commenting. In the meantime, we welcome your feedback to help us enhance the experience. Well, I did that survey, and while I don't remember exactly what I wrote, it went something like this. While I don't agree with all of the things I read in the comments section, I do feel that people should have the freedom to share their ideas. Which brings me to my first question. Parlez-vous liberté? Do you speak freedom? You see, for years, there has been a growing sentiment among many in society to clamp down on what is viewed as hate speech and misinformation. And make no mistake about it, hate speech does exist, and there is so much misinformation being spread, especially since the rise of social media. Before and after the Capitol protest, riots, or insurrection, whatever you prefer to call it, something started to bubble that was in line with the Yahoo comments section. Tech companies like Facebook, YouTube, and Twitter started being more proactive, or they started being more restrictive in what was allowed on their platforms, and in some cases, removing all traces of videos or comments that were identified as spreading misinformation, otherwise known as fake news. This crackdown included flagging comments from President Trump, pulling documentaries that were flagged as promoting conspiracy theories, and most recently, censoring certain ideas about the results of the 2020 presidential election. This clampdown culminated in the days following the Capitol riots, when President Trump's Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube account were suspended, and the social media platform named Parler was taken offline through the efforts of Google, Apple, and Amazon, who cited that because of a lack of proper moderation of the comments section of their website, they, along with President Trump, were partly or fully responsible for the spreading of information, ideas, and ideologies that led to the attack on the Capitol. And as of the time of the posting of this video, Donald Trump still does not have his Twitter, and Parler is still offline. The reaction over this was polarized, like everything else. Some cried that their freedom of speech was being taken away, and others laughed and cried good riddance to bad rubbish. It looked a little like this, with many of the celebrities on the left applauding the action, saying things like, ha, ha, ha. Church bells ring throughout the land so everyone knows it's over. Trump suspended from inciting violence on Twitter. The move by Twitter and Facebook are the biggest blows to his fascism. The year is looking up again, and finally. And the right, well, they painted a very bleak picture.
Good evening and welcome to Tucker Carlson. Tonight you are watching the Free Speech Channel. That's what it is, the last one left.
Lawmakers fighting for free speech and calling out big tech's double standard after Twitter banned President Trump from the platform, yet allows dictators to remain online.
Twitter is being completely hypocritical on the issue, and quite frankly, it's un-American.
Twitter, Facebook, Snapchat, and countless others have banded together to silence the president, and they're going further, kneecapping any other site that might provide a home to the president and his supporters, like Parler.
Now, I'm not here today to debate whether or not Donald Trump and Parler were responsible for the attack on the Capitol, even though I have my own opinion on that. But more importantly, if you're a student of Bible prophecy, then your prophetic senses should be tingling, and you should be asking yourself where all of this is heading. In Revelation 13, when discussing the mark of the beast, which we know to be a forced day of worship, the Bible says that people who do not receive the mark of the beast will not be able to buy or sell. The Desire of Ages, page 121, puts it this way: in the last great conflict of the controversy with Satan, those who are loyal to God will see every earthly support cut off because they refuse to break his law in obedience to earthly powers. They will be forbidden to buy or sell. I hope you caught that. It says every earthly support will be cut off, and they will be forbidden to buy or sell. In other words, they will have a very difficult time accessing goods and services, and those services include web hosting services and social media services. You see, much of the exchange of ideas, whether it's truth or error, takes place on a service. Facebook is a service. Twitter, a service. YouTube, where you're probably watching this right now, is a service. And what we have seen is how quickly people can be cut off from those services. Think about it. If the President of the United States can be essentially taken offline in a moment, if a multi-million-dollar social media company can be taken offline in a day, then what about those who will refuse to worship on a false Sabbath and are sharing the truth about the true Sabbath? Will that eventually be labeled as hate speech or dangerous to society? Let's let the great controversy answer that question. On page 592 of this book, it says, "Those who honor the Bible Sabbath will be denounced as enemies of law and order, as breaking down the moral restraints of society, causing anarchy and corruption, and calling down the judgments of God upon the earth." It's clear the state of society will eventually be blamed on those who refuse to acknowledge a false Sabbath. Here's another quote that discusses the reaction to those that warn others about the first beast of Revelation 13 that we know to be the Catholic Church. There are many who are disposed to attribute any fear of Roman Catholicism in the United States to bigotry or childishness. The Bible declares that the world will wonder after the beast, and that there will be a group of people declaring that this system of religion combining church and state is corrupt, by declaring that Babylon is fallen. And this biblical perspective will be viewed as bigotry, or in other words, hate speech. And what will be the eventual reaction to this? As the Protestant churches reject the clear scriptural arguments in defense of God's law, they will long to silence those whose faith they cannot overthrow by the Bible. Don't miss that. The Protestant churches, the religious right, whatever name you want to use, they are identified as the ones that will be at the forefront of the movement to silence Sabbath keepers. The Great Controversy, page 590, highlights this by saying that the people will lament the great wickedness in the world and second the testimony of religious teachers that the degraded state of morals is caused by the desecration of Sunday. The primary focus will be over morality, and the voices that will be seconded are the religious teachers, not the godless secularists. Make no mistake about it, we are living in the midst of a cancel culture that seeks to cut off earthly support for those who go against the grain. Currently, it's clear that the majority of this silencing is taking place from secularists or liberals, whichever you prefer. However, prophecy has declared where this is heading, and eventually, Protestants will take the cancel culture baton and run with it. So, are YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter taking away our constitutional freedom of speech? No, absolutely not. After all, those are their platforms, and they can do whatever they want with it. As Christians, we have to stop believing that we are entitled to everything. We should thank God for all of the freedoms we enjoy and for all of the options that we have for sharing the gospel. But it would be spiritual narcissism to believe that if the world doesn't agree with what we have to say, that they should still let us use their platform. And by the way, before I forget, I would be careful about celebrating when people we don't agree with get canceled, because as Revelation 13 highlights, we may get canceled if we choose to keep the true Sabbath and refuse to receive the mark of the beast. So with that being said, let me ask you one more time. Do you speak freedom? Hope to see you again. God bless.